Hey guys, my name is Octoman and today I want to show you how to create bubbles and let them burst when they are dying. So we're going to create a sub-emitter with some smaller bubbles and then let's just create a small explosion or bubble explosion effect with that. We will create those bubbles in Inkscape, and of course in Unity we will add the bubble motion itself to the bubbles. We will let them grow over time, and once they are at a specific lifetime, then we just can go and destroy them, or basically they will destroy themselves and then create that sub-emitter effect on bursting. So let's get over to Inkscape and create a bubble. Inkscape is a free vector program where you can create any kind of graphic you like, or basically almost every graphic, even if you're even realistic ones. And what we are going to start is we go and take the square tool and just create a square and make sure that it is black. If you have something like that and it's not already black, then you can go to the object mode and say the opacity is going to be 100% or 100. So the tool or how you get that palette is going to choose that small button over here. Okay, so now what we want to do is, or what I want to do is, I want to make sure that this one has a big size and it's sized in 600 by 600 pixels. So make sure you're going to change the size over here in the top to 600 by 600. This is just going to be our background. If you need to work with layers, there's no problem. You always have a layer manager in here, and you can always add more layers and can add this one to the background layer, lock it or make it invisible. Once you're locked, you can create a new one by pressing that plus button. It will automatically over that locked one. So this is our background, and this is going to be the one we are going to create our bubble. Okay, so now we are going to create a circle, and you might not see it on the black background, so we are going to create this on the left or on the right, wherever you want. What I want to do is I want to drag this one out, but as you can see, it is an ellipsoid and not a real circle. So what I do is I hold down the control key on Windows, and now I drag in the 45-degree angle away, and now I can create a circle which is 100% in all dimensions, has the same radius. What I want to do is I want to change the color of this one to maybe gray and duplicate this by pressing Ctrl D1 or so while it is still selected. If it is not, make sure that you're taking the selected tool and then you are able to drag around that one. I don't want to drag around this one, so I press Ctrl that or Ctrl Z, and then I just hold down, or let me just change the color first to white. Then I take one of those corners and drag this to the middle. But as you can see, it is not what I want. I want to go from the center, so I can hold down Shift, and then I'm going to scale this from center, and I also go over and hold down the control key again to have a the corresponding or the right dimensions, and all radiuses will be the same in that circle. Once you're done, you just leave the left mouse button down, and then you have two circles. The first one is over here, the gray one. So make sure to select this one right now and choose the color of white. Well, no, let's choose black for the first time. So now we have that one selected. Hold down Shift right now, choose the select key and select the inner circle, the white one. Now you go to Path, Difference. What we created right now is a circle with a hole basically in the middle. So we just stamped out the middle circle and made this one just the border of a circle. What we can do right now is we can change this one to white, take our select tool and drag this circle into our black background in here. Also, we can go over and select all two of them with the selected tool and make sure the second one is also unlocked. Then you can go to the align tools onto the right bottom and here and can say you want those to be vertical centered and horizontal centered, so the particle is not wasted in any space. So that's it. We can close that that alignment tool right now, and now we can basically add in effects to that circle. So the most important part we are going to use is the Bezier curve tool, and what we are going to create is effects and shapes which will make the illusion of this bubble being a 3D object. So this is the most important one in here, and we will achieve this by using some gradient tools, or basically the normal gradient tools, some lightnings. We will use some blur effects, and of course the most important one is the opacity. Okay, so let's get started. Somewhere in the left bottom part in here, and just click once and start inside of the border and create a new shape with the Bezier line tool. So what we can do is we take the round shape of that circle and hold down when we are going to select the position, and hold this one down. So as you can see, when I hold this down, I can create some curves. What I want to create is something which is go with the flow of the roundness in that circle. What I want to do next is I want to hold down Shift and select white. What I can see right now is the outline of that shape, because the problem in here is it is closed already, but it's not finished. And also, since we have the black background, we want to make sure that we are able to see what we are doing. So if you want to have one or two more points in between, let's say this point and this point, we can just hold down Shift again to select both of those points and select the plus button over here. And of course, in the middle of that, over here, will be created a new point. If you are unhappy with any anchor points or anchor handles, just hold down Control and select the anchor you are unhappy with. If you want to create a new anchor, just hold down Shift and drag one outside of the point you want to work around with. What I want to make sure is that I still be in that, or still work in that border, so I don't have any overlaps later on. We will need to fix stuff later on anyways. And also I want to make sure that the second point in here starts at that position too. I'm unhappy with this anchor or handle, so I go over and delete this. Hold down the Shift key again and drag a new one outside. If this is the wrong anchor point type, so what you can do is you can break the anchor points harder, I would say. So I just select this one. So now I have an edged point, and now I can drag out the handles separately from each other. Okay, so with that said, we can now start to form the first shape and create the first illusion of depth, or the illusion of roundness. So let's see what we can do in here. Make sure that everything fits well, and once you're happy with that, so you can see it's going to be roundish, we can take the gradient tool, first select the shape once again and just fill the stuff in. So I fill in a gradient shape right now. I start over here somewhere in the background or in the back, and that just drag this one in the top direction, so the end of the line or the end of that part in here will be almost transparent. You can also see this will be the transparent or the gradient we are going to use. So you can always go in and change the gradients in here, so make sure that the very last one is going to be white and full alpha, or at 0, and the first point or the first color in here, the first stop color, is going to be full white with 255 alpha. Okay, so with that done, we go over and delete or get rid of the border in here. So hold down Shift and select the small color. So now we have the first gradient in here. Maybe it's a bit too small, since it's going to be a bit more present later on the front of the bubble. And if you have something like that, you should be happy with that. We will do later changes anyways. What we want to do is we duplicate this by holding down Control and press D. Then we go and make a horizontal flip over here in the top. This is only visible when you are in the selector tool. And then make sure that you move it to the right and to the left until it fits the other side. So what we want to do right now is we want to make sure that we add more effects. What does it mean is I want to create another effect of the same type on the other side of the bubble. So I go over and duplicate those two. Again, you can select them by selecting the first, hold down Shift, and then you are able to select the second one. Make sure you are going to press right now Control D, so we go over and duplicate them. And now you can drag them maybe up or down. You can also go in and scale them up and down, left and right, whatever you want. With the second tool on the left, you can always go in again and drag stuff inside or down here to that point. And usually it's maybe better to just do this one once and then just copy and paste the second one once again. So I go over and take the selector tool, get rid of the first one, and maybe make sure that all the points I'm going to use in here are fitting a bit better maybe, and it's going to be a bit bigger, of course, so we can see this one later on a bit better. And yeah, the next thing is we go over and duplicate this one once again, make a horizontal flip of that, and again try to arrange that to the corresponding position or to the one you like to. And what we're gonna do right now with that things is, with that 2 in the background, we go and decrease the visibility. So we go over to maybe 20% of opacity. And of course we want to make them blurry. So go and, I don't know, feel free to test around with a blur, but don't overdo it. Maybe between 3 and 5% might be the right decision for this. For the frontal ones, we are going to do something like that too. Of course, make sure that those 2 in here are behind. So select that secondary tool in here so you can sync them once down, once you're clicking them. And you can sync them until, yeah, they are behind them. So now I'm able to select those other ones. Again, make them a bit blurry. Maybe also around 4 or 3% for the blur, and of course make the visibility down a bit, but I believe not less than 70 for now. Okay, so now we have some roundish effect on them. You can again go over into them and change everything you are not happy with. Add more and more effects to it. That's what we're going to do next. So the next effect we're going to create is some other roundish effect. So the first one starts somewhere in the middle over here. We go straight with a line, hold down the mouse button, and then leave it alone. Right click. Now make sure you hold down Shift and select white, so you can see this one on the black background. Now go in and find the anchor point of the right or on the left. Select it once, so we start in there. Then select the second one over here and drag in the handle until you have some kind of moon effect in here, or a slightly moonish or roundish effect. So now again fill it with white by just selecting the white color without any shortcut, and make sure that you get rid of the border by holding down Shift and select no color. Of course we need to go over and get rid of the visibility. Maybe we go to 10% and blur this one out to maybe 2 or maybe a bit more, maybe 5. So what we also want to do is we want to duplicate this one by Control D, flipping this one vertically, move this one down by using the arrow keys if you like to. And of course we need to make sure that this is a bit more visible, so we have a frontal coming out. And this one as 10% seems to be a bit too much, so maybe I decrease opacity to 5%. Okay, that looks pretty okay-ish. So now I want to have a center effect from the back side, so I can again go into my Bezier Curve tool. Gonna start somewhere over here, maybe around the middle, and then I want to create something like this. Don't forget, hold down Shift, choose a white color, get the right anchor point, close this one off and make something like that. If you have this one done, you can go into our gradient tool once again, go from down to up. So you have the gradient inside of that. Make sure that you hold down Shift again and get rid when you have the select tool and get rid of the border. Now we go and make this one blurry again, and of course reduce the opacity to maybe something between 10 and 20, maybe 20. You need to decide and check what's the best way. Okay, now more effects we need on the top. So at first we go over and make a more prominent one on the front side of the bubble. So we start maybe here. Again, you can always go and make this one round or whatever you want. Don't forget to make the outline white. And when you right click, you can always end a line, and then you can go over and make it like however you want. Don't forget to close this one already with the right mouse button again. And this one will also have a gradient tool from the left, bottom left to the top right, and hold down again, and maybe it's going to be like this. Take the selector tool, hold on Shift and select no color. So we have this one in here too. Maybe you can also take another gradient tool where you have the bottom and the top. Yeah, let's create this one. This might look a bit better. So what you can do is we can go to the gradient tool in here, select this one, and we can actually create a new one. So we can add in now we have 3 different ones in here. So we go over and take the last one. Well, no, we don't. Gonna select this one once again, and what we can do is we can go and work on that gradient we have just selected on the right side, which is in the color panel again. What we can do is we can to say edit. We can add a new color by clicking this button. What we can do is we can select this button or this color from down or from the middle in here, and we go up with the opacity. Yes. Now we go to the first step color and go down in opacity to 100% or to 0 in this case on alpha. I'm going to use the HSL colors scheme in here. So as you can see now we have a very different effect on this. And of course we need to make sure that this complete part in here, by using the select color, we go over and decrease the visibility and increase the blur effect. Okay, so we can do something like that everywhere we want, once again. But now I want to go and add more detailed ones, and of course I want to have a ground or roundish ground effect in here. So we have something like a bottom of that bubble. So just drag yours or take your circle tool and drag something out like this. And of course you need to make this one a bit more blurry. Maybe around 20 is very okayish. And of course we might decrease the visibility somewhere there. Okay, so now we go and add more detailed effects, or not just detailed but more prominent effects. So the first one is going to be just a full transparency or opacity and maybe around 20% blur. And this effect can be rotated by selecting it once again with the selector tool. So we have that round corner parts in here, and we can rotate this and place this wherever we want. We can also go and select this one once again and scale this one up to our needs. And if you don't feel that this one is with 20 blurry, then maybe you want to do it more prominent with around 10 blur. So now we can go over and take this one once again, duplicate that and place it wherever we want. If you have any trouble with working around all that stuff, then yeah, use layers and block any unuseful panel. Okay, so now I want to have more effects on the very left, which is another moon effect as we have had in the middle, but way more prominent. So I'm going to do the same stuff in here once again. Gonna make a moon, make it slightly, maybe 10 blurry. Well, no, that's too much. Maybe 5 is too much too. This really needs to be very prominent. And of course I want to make another circle effect, like this one. Gonna duplicate that. Well, let me just drag this one out, rotate this one a bit, and maybe of course scale this down and make another lighting effect in here, like this. And now one more effect for the other side. Gonna duplicate those. Well, it's not easy to handle all that stuff. Make sure that you do a horizontal flip and select them both. Gonna rotate them. There we go. And then we are going to place somewhere here, so we don't have too much empty space. Okay, that's it for the bubble, I believe. We can always go in and make stuff way unprominent, like maybe the back parts in here. So I might reduce the visibility of the back side a bit more, maybe to just 6 or 5%, so it's not too prominent. Also, I might go over and take the boss frontal parts in here and increase the blur to maybe 5%. And of course I need to make sure that I drag them, well, use the tool again in here, and moves them up a slight bit, so we don't have too much blur on the bottom or looking from the bottom. And the last part is the border itself can of course take a gradient, so we go and start to create a gradient from the very top to the bottom, and maybe drag this one over just a slight bit, so we have the light in its basic in the top, and we have in the bottom a very slightly gradient or invisibility by the opacity. Okay, so now we are done with our bubble. You always can go over and create more and more stuff for the bubble. So what you can do is you can go to File, Bitmap Export. Once you are done, you can you have to press the Export button. Once you have exported this one, there should be a message, okay, exporting done. Then you can go over to Unity. This is just my sample scene, so don't worry about the cylinder in the middle. What I want to do is I want to create a new particle system, of course, and I go over and zero this one out. So go to that small G in here and say reset position. What I want to do is I want to create the material first. I'm going to keep mine in here and just create a new one. So go to your materials folder. If you don't have one, then just go over and create one. Right click and say create material. This can be, in my case, it's going to be bubble 2. So what we want to do is we want to create or change the shader from standard to particle. Better go for mobile, particle, and then additive. And the additive will just make sure that you over blend basically other particles or other bubbles, so there will be a slight lightning effect. So what I want to do is I want to go to my textures folder. I have a bubbles folder in here, and what I do is I drag in my bubble texture into the texture slot. As you can see, the bubble material is already done in here, so I don't need to take care of anything else because it's additive. If you want to use not additive but instead alpha blended, then you have to make sure that you don't save the bubble with a black background. What we want to go over is we want to create an empty game object, and this one is going to be our FX for effect FX or whatever, call it whatever you want, but make sure that you create an empty game object for any particle system you are going to create. And call this one, I don't know, particle bubble or bubbles. So this is going to be our placeholder for our particle system. So make sure that you zero this one out too by going to the small g and say reset position. So all of them, so the particle bubble and the particle system are on the same position. Then drag the particle system on that one. Why we are going to do that? Basically, you can now take that fx game object, and if you are programming anything in the particles, you won't affect anything, and you are able to rotate the particle effect into any way or move it to any position without affecting the particle system itself. So we go over and reset the position of the fx once again. Now let's go into the particle system and rename this one to bubbles, like this. So now we want to take care of the material at first, so go to renderer and choose, instead of default particle, take your bubble. So I take bubble 2 in my case, since we just created this one. What you want to make sure is you don't want to cast any shadows with that particle system, except you really want that, but I don't recommend to use this. Also, you don't want to receive any shadows. The next thing is we can go over and change down the speed to maybe 1. So you can see it's slightly going up, and all those overlaying bubbles will already lighten the other bubbles up. That's what the additive shader is going to do. So you have some cool effects maybe in the center you will not have with Alpha Blended. Okay, also I want to make sure that I don't have more than 100 particles in the scene. So whatever is happening, don't go over that. And of course, we want to change the velocity over lifetime, so we can get the bubble motion into place. What we want to do is we want to change velocity over lifetime from the current constant to curve. So we have the possibility to create a curve for anything. So make sure you have X selected in here. You can also go and with right clicking you have the possibility to make a big view of this one. What I want to make sure is that at any prominent point, in my case, I want to create some keys. So right click and say add key. This is going to have the value, or should have the value around 0.2 from the time, 0.2. So you can go and edit everything with right click, and a value of -1. So as you can see, you can create curves by just editing the complete curve in here. Also, I want to have another key on 1.10, but I want to make sure that this one is over here at the very top. This has a time of 0.1. It's not how I want this to be, so I go to Free Smooth and just take the handle and make it horizontal. The same needs to be applied to this one. So again, this is 0.2, and what we do is we go and create a complete a sinus curve basically, but yeah, a bit more like this. So go over again, this value is going to be a 1, and this value is going to be 0.3. Now we go over and add another key. This we go over and edit this one to -1 once again. We're gonna repeat this one until we are at the very end. As you already can see in the preview, they are already making a cool movement in there. So the last point is going to be at the full time. So edit the key. This is going to be a time of 1 and a value of 0. Like this. So now you have a complete curve pretty much fixed and should look like this. You can also create a variation to this one by using 2 curves. And what I want to make sure is that I select that small g in here and press on the new button. So you have this curve saved as a preset, so you can always go in and use that preset later on for any uses, for any stuff you like to create another bubble motion. So now we have this one on the x-axis, but when I rotate the camera you can see it might be still maybe we find a correct angle or angle, well, like this. as you can see, they are still going from the y-axis straight up. So I want to go over into the y-axis, make sure that it is green and the y is selected over here, and then go to the small g and select the prefab or preset we just selected, and make sure that you have the curve in there too. So we have a y and an x rotation, or basically bubble motion from the bottom to the top, and this is the way the bubbles are going over the complete lifetime. If you have a longer lifetime, they will take longer. You can always go and make the number in here bigger or smaller, like 3, 10 or whatever. I'm gonna show you 3. If I hit enter, you can see that the y movement is now way higher. So don't overdo that, or use it just like you need to. The next thing is, I want to create a size over lifetime. So I want to start small and turn out big. So I take the first point and drag this down to maybe 0.2 or something like that. Again, you can always go in and edit the key to 0.2, add time position 0. Now you can see they are starting small at 0.2 and go up until they are at 1. Another part is, or another thing is, you can always go and change the rate of the spawning, the duration of the spawning, and all the other things, but we basically don't need to. But I want to decrease the rate a bit, maybe to 5 or 3, so we don't have too much bubbles on the screen and we can see what they are going to do. And now we can create the burst of the bubbles, and this is going to be pretty simply done. What we do is we create a new particle system or particle effect. What I want to do is I want to change the shape from cone to sphere at first. Also, I want to decrease the radius to maybe the maximum size of the bubble, which is at the very top right now. So make sure you have already something on the screen. If it's smaller, it doesn't really matter, but don't overdo it once again. We want to make sure that we are creating this one later on from the center of the bubble. Also, I want to make sure that I emit from shape, so it will fit better later on. Now you can see it's flying in every weird directions randomly and 360 degrees in all directions. What I want to make sure is that I put down the rate to 0, and I want to add a burst effect with a plus. So now I can see they are flying around and so on and so forth until they are basically done. I want to change the duration to 1, and also I want to change the lifetime to maybe 0.5. Yeah, that looks pretty okay. Then I want to reduce the size maybe to 0.2. So we have a small spit out effect. You can always go into the burst itself and can increase this minimum maximum of the burst particles to 60 to 100 or whatever you like to. Then what you want to make sure is that you use a gravity modifier and set this one to maybe 2. So we have a drop down of the particles. If 2 is too much for you, then you can always go and maybe use just 1. So I have a slight drag down. Once the bubble is going to burst, I'm going to use 2 in my case. What I also want to make sure is that I change the color over lifetime. So I'll select this one too. And make sure that you're going to go to the very last point in here and change the alpha to 0. So they will go over and be transparent. You can also, if you don't want to use color over lifetime, use size over lifetime. So we can do the same with the curve in here. So the first point is going to be at 1, which is the maximum size, and the second key can be gone down to 0, which might look a bit better. And you can of course go and combine those two. So they will get reduced and will of course also go and get transparent over lifetime. Okay. So what we do now is we want to rename the particle system for this one in here. So it's going to be the bubble burst. And in the bubbles itself, we want to create a sub-emitter. And the sub-emitter is going to be the bubble burst. So make sure that you enable sub-emitter And on death, you can also go over and use collision when it's colliding with anything. On death, we want to add the bubble burst. I want to set this one to reparent. And now, as you can see, the bubbles will automatically spawn the sub-emitter once they are dead, once they are dying, because their lifetime is over, or at the maximum size of 5 in my case. So if this is not enough for you and you don't like the particle effect with just the default particle, you can go always into the renderer and take the bubble 2 effect maybe. So you will spit out small bubbles again, or you just leave it alone and say you take the default particle system in here. If they are too prominent, you can always go into the color itself at the start color and reduce the alpha to any not so prominent alpha. So maybe to around 80 or something. It's your decision. So yeah, and once you're going into your game and yeah, those bubbles are going to grow up at a specific point, they will just blow down. And that's it for the tutorial. So if you liked that video, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. If you haven't already, don't forget to write me any questions about particle systems or anything else around Unity if you like to, and of course thumbs this video up if you like it. So see you in the next tutorial. I hope you enjoyed this one. Well, I did. So bye bye.